I think it's my third time on this stage, but my second time in BlueHat. So there's another conferences I've been talking here, and actually it's my first time in BlueHat technically, because I was here on February in the other building, and I was only spoke in the third day in Strike conference. So my talk there was about my experiences with working with Microsoft in 5 decades. So yes, I'm that old. And I have a starting slide there. So how many of you are from Microsoft? I know a couple of you, okay. So let's start with the same slide. So people of Microsoft, I come in peace. Well, should I do this? Yeah. Okay, so the title, it's by design. So how many of you are researchers? A couple, yes. I can see my colleague here in the front row. So when we do a lot of job work, we're trying to find a vulnerability, and when we submit that, and when we got back, it's by design, we usually go like, no! And that's also like the worst nightmare we can have. So we do a lot of work, we submit, it's by design, which means A, it's not going to be fixed, and 2, you won't get the bounty. And that's my story today. So I'm going to first talk about those key concepts that are involved in this area, and then I have 4 or 5 cases about by design. So what happened when the report came back as a by design? So, bug bounty. What is bug bounty? It's a reward, usually monetary reward, for someone who finds a vulnerability. Microsoft also has points, which will be given to people who submit vulnerabilities, even though they might not always get bounty, but they will still have points. And if you have points, you will end up to a list called MVR, or Most Valuable Researcher. And I'm on that list this year also, third time in a row, but I'm only 146, so not in top 100 anymore. My colleague Tony here in the front row, what are you, 85 or something? Yeah, so he did much better this year than I did. Okay, so what is a vulnerability? So that is what you find some in piece of software usually that will have a negative impact of confidentiality, availability, and integrity. So those 3, or one of those 3, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And this is from Mitrailog, which also Microsoft is using. A couple of other concepts. So bug bounty program, what that means? Well, it means bounties related to certain product, like what is a Microsoft have? Microsoft Azure, and then Microsoft Identity. And those programs are where I usually submit, sometimes also to Office. And then out of scope, what does that mean? It means that, okay, you found something interesting. That is a vulnerability, but it doesn't fit to any of these bounty programs, which means that it will get fixed. You usually are asked to not, publish that before it's fixed, but you won't get a bounty. Who likes that? Well, nobody, but it just sometimes happens. And the next one is by design. By the way, the graphics are made by Microsoft, so not me, so I don't know why they chose checkmark for by design, but that's how it is. So it's something that is not a vulnerability. And sometimes it's, you have a different, opinion about that as a researcher and Microsoft, but sometimes it's released by design, so it's working as it's intended to work, and so on. And finally, the last one is severity. So Microsoft has like 4 different levels. So you have low, moderate, important, and critical. And usually you will get bounty only for the highest ones. Except that there are some programs with Microsoft like Edge, which also pays for moderate ones. But usually it's only for important and critical. And then for the cases, so that's why you are here usually, to see these examples. So I have 4 slides per each case. So first I'm going to introduce the case. Then I have some MITRE attack framework, if you will, categorization for those. Then the response from Microsoft, and then results. So what happened? And this is one of my favorites one. Quite not typical case, I would say. So here's a technical case. So we could do user enumeration and also brute forcing passwords, and how that's possible. Well, there's an endpoint in Azure AD or Entra ID or whatever it's called nowadays, called autologon, and that is meant for single sign-on called seamless single sign-on, also known as desktop SSO, where when you are logged on domain joined computer, then your computer goes to that autologon endpoint and it sends your Kerberos service ticket to a thing called desktop SSO token. And then using that token, it actually logs in as you. So that's how the single sign-on works. Now, my current colleague, he wasn't at that time, Joshua Santasalo, who works with me and Tony. So he published a blog post years ago that said that you can also use username and password with this endpoint, which means that you can send your username and password to the autologon endpoint, and then it tries to authenticate with those credentials to Azure AD. And if everything goes okay, you will get the desktop SSO token. And if it fails, it sends you an error message to you. But if that's successful, your computer will send the Azure AD, well, you can send that desktop SSO token to Azure AD to log in. Now, a couple of interesting things. First of all, I noticed that if you only do the step 3, it's not logged anywhere. And if you remember from the keynote today, John Lambert's first bullet point was what to detect stuff? Logging, yes. So there is no logging whatsoever here. And that was the first finding. Second one was that, again, if you stop there, you could use this for brute forcing. So you use same username, but different passwords. And when you get an error message, depending on an error message, you just continue to use other passwords. If the user has like MFA and you got the credential correct, you will get an error message that says that you need to do MFA. But now you know that you have the current set of credentials, username and password. And you also could use this for user enumeration. So just try different usernames with, well, random password. And if it says that, okay, your credentials are incorrect, you know that, okay, that user exists. So, if we take a look at this from MITRE attack point of view, so there are a couple of things. So first of all, you can do this for recon, and then also like do the brute forcing. So these 2 things that you can do with this endpoint. Okay, and the response. Well, the first thing is this actually reads in the bug bounty programs pages. So enumeration is out of scope. So even though you find something like this, it's not considered as a vulnerability. So nothing's going to be fixed and no bounty. And this is from a fellow researcher, Nick's Geek. Some of you might know him. He had a great talk in DevCon this year about doing the enumeration, which is not vulnerability. You can have a look at that. And this is from my report. This one. Okay. In yellow, user enumeration does not meet the bar for servicing, which means that it's by design. But then the red one, okay, regarding the sign-in, it's not locked. So this is by design by now. Okay, if you remember what Lambert said, you need to have logging, but here it's like it's by design. Okay, well, that happens. And then another researcher had submitted this earlier, before me, Dirkjan Mollema. You might know him. He's the other guy who does what I do. And to him, Microsoft said that we are going to fix this. And to me, they said it's by design. So 2 different messages. That's not good. Okay, but anyways, it was like by design, and we're not going to fix that. So the result was that we published a blog post, or this is actually a threat analysis, as we call it, about something like this. And it caught the attention of media. So there's a new stuff that you can do to brute forcing, and it's not going to be fixed. But then Microsoft actually contacted us and said that yes, we are going to fix this. And there was another news for that. So it got a lot of publicity, but Microsoft promised to give us logging improvements, and I think they are there now. So everything is logged in step 3 already. And then also we have a smart logout, which is protecting that endpoint also, which is a good thing. And some lessons learned from this case. So first of all, enumeration is a feature, so don't report that. It's waste of time. So there's nothing to do with that. Keep researchers updated, so tell us where you are in the process. And then please do not lie to us. So if you tell someone else that this is by design and someone else that this is going to be fixed, well, we will find out, because researchers speak to each other every now and then. Sometimes they'll be involved, but yes, and it's also okay to ask to postpone. So if you are going to fix something, just tell us that, okay, can you postpone this? Because usually researchers like me, we just want to keep things secure. And for that reason, it's okay for us to postpone. So you can ask that. Okay, second case, Exchange Online Direct Send. Who has heard about this? Not many hands. Well, I heard about this during the DEF CON this year, and it's from fellow researcher Reversal. I think some of you know him. And here's his case. So Exchange Online Direct Send is an endpoint in Exchange Online, which is meant for multifunction devices to be able to send email to your organization's people. So you can just configure using that name, which is always standard. So it's like your domain name, where dots are replaced with dashes, .mail.production.outlook.com. And it's anonymous, so you don't need to provide any credentials. Just send email there. Say where you want to send it. It will only send inside your organization, and then ask who you want to send that email. And it has to be trusted by the organization. So for instance, here in this example, the organization trusted all email from Cisco. So he sent an email there, again with no username and password, just send email to that endpoint and tell them, okay, this email is from Cisco. And in the inbox we can see that that is the case. So this is what he reported. So you can use this totally legit feature to do bad things. And it can be used for initial access, so you can use that for phishing. So for instance, if you send email from hr@yourcompany.com, and by the way, that email doesn't need to exist. Only the domain has to be, there. The domain has to be something that you trust or your organization trusts. And so on. So you can use this for bad things. So what was the response? Okay, please provide us a valid proof of concept with images. If we go back, there's an image, right? With all the steps that you need to reproduce this, and also what are the consequences. But that was the response. And what was worse is that it was closed, as this case is out of scope of MSRC. So automatically closed, so no waiting for response from the researcher. So this is the case. Now what happened? He published a blog post about this, spoofing Microsoft 365 like it's 1995. And then someone from Microsoft contacted his employer and Well, basically, I won't share the details, but pretty much it was that, why are you publishing these kind of things? It's a bad thing. So, again, lessons learned from here. So please do not, for Microsoft, so please do not close those cases automatically. So allow researchers to respond to you. Some are not as, let's say, well, at that time it was I got that also. In one of my own cases, I had to submit a POC for 5 times or something like that before it got accepted, but it happens. But in this case, it was just publish a blog post. And please, if you say something is like by design or not our concern, do not contact employers to talk about that, because you said it's not our concern, so why bother? Okay, let's move forward. It's also one of my favorite ones, dumping global admins. And this is actually from my fellow researcher, Shravan Akkaram. And actually, when he first he contacted me first time in Twitter or X or whatever it's called nowadays, that hey, I have a problem here. So he didn't get his message through to MSRC. So he asked, can I help him? And I said yes. And actually, this is from BlueHat Asia a couple of months ago. So our talk about this was accepted to be there in the main stage. So it was nice to meet him actually, first time live, and we had a session there. So what is this? So it's about access packages. Who knows access packages? Someone might have heard about that. Yes, so it's a feature in Azure AD or Entra ID P2, which allows you to create access packages for certain groups of people like outsiders or contractors, so they can come to your website or portal and they can request access to that access package, and then you can, approve or deny that. And you can do that for your also like guest users and also your internal users. And we found out that there's a backend API which the portal is using that allows you to list all the catalogs and access packages, like when you were like outsider, so you were not even guest, so just anonymous user, you could ask that give me all the access packages, even the internal ones. And we used like Microsoft here as an example. Now, what is interesting that in the API, when you return an access package, there's 2 fields, created by and modified by. And at that time, that user was either user admin or global admin. And you could list basically like any anonymous user could go into Microsoft Access Package portal and list those admins. So quite nice. So you have working like a list of global admins or user admins. So from my attack point of view, it's a recon. So again, a kind of user enumeration, but in other way, because now you have actually a list of users, and you can also find like a valid cloud accounts. So what was the response for this? So this time it was not, it's by design, but it's more like it's not severe enough. So we were able to reproduce this. You were able to list these users, but we don't think this is that severe. Okay? So what did I do then? So I went to Microsoft documentation, which says that, okay, these users are user admins or global admins. And I responded that, hey, these are administrators we are talking about. So I think this is quite severe from my point of view. And what happened? Any ideas? No. It was fixed. And Shravan got 7,000 bounty for this, because it was actually leaking information about the global admins or normal admins. Now it's fixed so that when you go there, you can only list those access packages which you are entitled to access. So outsiders can only see outsiders and so on. But still they have that admin information. I don't know why. You can see them in portal. There's no use case for that, but it's still there. So that's just a tip. So if you are a guest, you can ask from the access package site that, hey, give me the list of those admins, and you can have the list. Okay, so lessons learned from here for researchers. So if you find something like this, argue using their documentation. So they can deny that. So this is like this. Also, you can ask help from those, what were the Yodas, as John Lambert said, or the red teamers could be even Darth Vaders. So you can ask for help, and we are more than happy to help. Next example. This is my favorite one, and as you can see, the timeline from June 2020 to November 2021. So this took a lot of time, and actually there was at least 4 cases or reports I had to send. So it's a very big thing, and this is my first bounty actually. So what is the case about? Okay, so Azure AD Connect or Entra ID Connect or whatever it's called nowadays is a software that is synchronizing stuff from your on-prem AD to Entra ID. So that's what it does. And it is using a proprietary protocol, which I call synchronization protocol, which is SOAP based. And SOAP means XML files, so it's an ASIN technology. And if you are like synchronizing user, or you want to modify user properties in your on-prem AD, it is sending a message to Azure AD, Entra ID, that it's an XML file. It says, okay, this is the user who I want to modify, and this is the user's source anchor, which refers to user's ID in the on-prem AD. And then it sends that to Azure AD, Entra ID, and then it looks that, okay, if there's a matching user information, and then makes the changes. Now, I also found that there's another attribute called Cloud Anchor. And the format of that is user underscore and user's ID in cloud. And I was wondering that can I use that only to modify users which are not synchronized? And I was able to do that. So instead of using that source anchor, I provided that Cloud Anchor in the XML, and then it edited or deleted or modified properties of the cloud-only users, which shouldn't be possible. So, and it also allowed me to reset password of cloud-only users, including global admins. So if you were able to compromise the server that runs Azure AD Connect, you were able to reset global admin password and log in as that global admin. So basically, you will have a privilege escalation here. So that's what we are talking about. And what was the response? By design, yes. So they actually closed that. It is not MSRC case. And then the issue you reported is by design. Okay, so I read this response. I don't know, can you see it, but it says that when the global admin is synchronized from on-prem to cloud, that's like a normal behavior. I was like, okay, they didn't understand what I told them, so that I can do this for cloud-only users. And this to take about year and a half, and there was a lot of discussion with people at Microsoft. And I also used some of my contacts so that, can you please take a look at this because I think this is wrong. And finally, they said that yes, that's the case. And I got a $20,000 bounty for by design case, which is quite nice, right? So the bug got fixed, and lessons learned for you as a researcher, please read the response, because I noticed immediately, okay, this is something wrong. And also be persistent. So if you think that this is wrong, and it really was wrong, because I got a 20K bounty, and they fixed that. So please be persistent, and sometimes you might need to use your contacts also to get things, to get more, to go forward. And what was fixed, where there was a lot of fixes for different kinds, but the latest fix that there was this. So there was a new feature called Block Cloud Object Takeover through hard match. That's a complicated word. So basically, you had to be a global admin so that you can set that, and if that's true, it prevents manipulating cloud-only users. Well, that didn't work that well. So this is from Twitter chat with one of the program managers of Azure AD at that time. Now it's called Entra ID. So I told him that I can actually change this setting back by using that Azure AD Connect service user. So I didn't have to be global admin. I could be that account that this setting tries to prevent from doing bad things. So you could just turn it off and do the bad thing. And he said, oh, that's bad. And yes. And what I did, so I made another report to Microsoft, and it really got fixed, and I get another 20K bounty for the same thing. Again, that was originally by design. So what can we learn from here? So first of all, you need to check the fix. So does it really, fix what it's supposed to fix? And then if you find that it doesn't fix, or the fix doesn't work correctly, report in another report. Because that's where you will usually double your bounty. Okay? So please do that. And for Microsoft, if you want to save money, you should ask researchers to confirm your fix. So that, does this really work? And then if they are not in their sharpest moments, they might test that and say, no, it didn't work, instead of, submitting a new report. Okay, and then next one, and this is for the case I presented at DEF CON this year. The title was pretty much the same. So breaking SharePoint integrity. So in SharePoint there's an API called Migration API that is used by SharePoint Migration Tool, or SPMT. So it's meant for migrating stuff from your on-prem. Let's say you have a file share and you want to move that content of that file share to SharePoint. You can do this with this toolkit. And you have the full control of the metadata if you are calling it API directly. So you can say who created this file, when it was created. Also, you have full control of the content. Okay, but you need to have certain admin rights, and that requires site owner permissions. So those who have worked with SharePoint know that those are quite high permissions. But if you are a normal mortal, like most of us are, you can create a team. Who has created team? Team. Who has created team? Nobody? I think you all have. Okay, so now you are team owner, and therefore you have site owner permissions to that team. And team is using SharePoint online as a file storage, if you will. So if you created the team, you have the owner permissions, then you can spoof files. So you can create files there as another users, and you can use whatever date you want. So you can really spoof content. And also you can modify existing files. And the funny part is that there's no logs whatsoever. So if you create file here using this method, or you modify, there's no log events whatsoever. Again, and what was the first bullet point in the keynote? So you need to have logs that you can detect something, right? Well, that's not the case. So if we look at this from the attack point of view, so you can do data manipulation. And there's also privilege escalation, because you can do things that you should not be allowed to do, like modify others' content without, any like log events whatsoever. So the response for this was what? Well, by design. So this feature works as it's intended to work, and I agree, it does. However, you can do bad things with this. So you can do manipulation that there's no log events at all. So results. So anybody who created teams can exploit this. You can't switch this off, this API. And that means that SharePoint Online or Teams or OneDrive, which are using like SharePoint Online, they are not compatible with regulations that require that you have audit trail. A couple of examples, GDPR and HIPAA, I think that's how you pronounce that. And lessons learned to Microsoft, please look outside the box. So technically, this works exactly as it's intended, so you can create files there, but you can also use that for bad things. And just a couple of quotes from GDPR. So it says that you need to ensure that your system is always keeping your integrity. It's on this one. And the second one also says that you need to ensure that your systems have the integrity all the way working. And you need to also prove that. So that's the last part. But yeah, that's how it works now. So you can do that. Actually, people know, I think, best me of my toolkit, AA internals. So the latest version have all the things you need to do this. So if you want to, make some fun inside your organization, so you can do that. Okay. The second part here was that after I got the by design, I still researched that more, and it turns out that SharePoint is ASIN technology based on active server pages or extended active service pages or ASPX files. And with this API, I could replace the design also. So basically that allowed me to add JavaScript to the pages. And then if somebody visited that page, the JavaScript was run by that user. So you could do anything the user have permissions to do. If that user was global admin, you got the tenant, and so on. And from my attack, it's pretty much same as the previous one, but you can also run the code as a user. So this is XSS, or cross-site scripting attack. And result, so what happened? Well, it got fixed. I got 3,000 bounty. But the fix didn't work actually. So I told them that I have a DEFCON talk in 4 weeks or so. And 2 weeks before my talk, I tried that, hey, this fix actually doesn't work. I can still do this attack. And I contacted MSRC that, hey, did you fix, or what did you fix actually? And then when my talk was on Saturday, I finally got a meeting on previous Sunday with MSRC, and we figured out that what was wrong. And they were deploying global fix in next 48 hours, which is actually well done. So I didn't know that you can do that fast. Okay. So lessons learned. So be persistent again. So if you get a by design, research is more. So there might be a bigger impact that you didn't understand in the first place, and this might help. And then remember to submit a new report. I didn't, so I lost another 3K bounty. But that's stupid of me. So please always submit a new report if you find something like this. Okay, so I'm running a bit ahead of time, but that's okay, I think. So I can give you back a couple of minutes. So the last one is, well, this is not my favorite actually. It's opposite of that, but anyways. And the most typical thing I would say that can happen. So bypassing multi-factor authentication and conditional access with Exchange Online API. So I found out that using the Exchange Online remote PowerShell, so that supports basic authentication. So those who doesn't know what it means that when you make an HTTP request, you put an authorization header and then basic, and then basically you send username and password in base64 encoded format, and you can log in. And this allowed bypassing MFA and conditional access. So I could call the API even though the user has defined MFA, and I had a conditional access that prevented for that user to log in. But I was able to do that. So what I did, I submitted a report. So basically, you could do defense evasion. So you could, even though there was a MFA, you could bypass that. And what was response? Anyone? You know this? By design, yes, that's by design. And there's a link for documentation, which is quite embarrassing for research. Like, I know this stuff, you don't need to put those links. But I had to read those things, and it turns out that I messed this up. So when you disable basic authentication, as they say here, it's not like that. It's exchange online, that takes 4 hours. And same with MFA exclusion list. And I didn't wait for that long. So I said, okay, my bad. So I tested this later. So it took 4 to 5 hours for this setting to change. So result was that this is a false positive. And lessons learned, read the friendly manual and double check before you submit. And I think this happens a lot. And people on MSRC I think that you can confirm this is the case. Okay, enough of that summary. So for Microsoft, so the whole purpose of this talk was to show you some different ways that what happens if you got the by design thing. There were like different results and so on. And I want to foster the communication with researchers and MSRC. We both are people, mostly. So we can talk to each other. Please talk to each other. So this makes it much easier. So for Microsoft, please keep us as the researchers updated. It's okay to ask to postpone. We are here for you. We want to, keep everything secured. Don't lie to researchers because we talk to each other. Don't contact employers. If you say something, it's not our concern. Don't do that. It's not good. And if you are smart, you can always ask researchers to validate the fix. We also want to do that. And look outside the box. So it's not always about that certain feature or technique, but what bad you can do with that. And the researchers read the by design response carefully. So they might understand that wrong. So especially when I started to do this a couple of years ago, for instance, the synchronization stuff, that is very complicated. And there are maybe 5 people in the Earth who knows what you are talking about, and you are one of them. So the 4 are somewhere inside Microsoft. So they might not understand what you are telling to them. So you just need to be persistent. And also argue using documentation, also previous cases. So I talked about the Shravan Akkaram, who found that certain feature from the access packages. And he also found that same from Chinese cloud, Microsoft's Chinese version of Azure. And again, they told him that this is not severe enough, and he thought, okay, this is the case, exactly same case, and it was, okay, there's another 7K party for you. So always remember that. And then you can talk to other researchers, even though that you are junior, those Yodas and Darth Vaders, they want to help you. If you really have a case, sometimes happens that you don't. And report the fixed bypass in a separate report if you want to get more money. If you don't, you can just mail them that this didn't work. And then, for me, the last point is read the manual and double check before you submit. And that's it. And with that, so thank you for having me.